welcome back to Friday's OffBeat, the podcast we do up here at Loyola University in conjunction with OffBeat magazine. And we interview some of the coolest people in town, the best musicians, the best producers. Today we have one of my favorite young musicians in town with us, Teitel. What's up?
How you doing, John?
Good, buddy. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So Ari, weird story. I'd heard about Ari a little bit, and I have a friend in LA, and he's like, "Oh yeah, my daughter's marrying this musician." I was like, "How do you feel about that?" And he's just joking. And he's like, "Well, the kid's good. He's really talented. I think he's gonna be a star." I was like, "Really? What's his name?" Teitel. I was like, "Wait, I know that name." And then I was introduced by Ari at the Po' Boy Fest last year, or 2 years ago, whatever it was now. And then, I see his band Chawa, and then he tells me about the Rumble, and now Rumble's one of my favorite bands in town. So we're lucky enough to have Ari with us. Ari, thank you for spending some time with us. Just go back. I think you grew up in Detroit, maybe, if I'm not mistaken?
Yep.
Okay, so tell me about coming up in Detroit, and how'd you get into music? What was your first influences?
Let's see. So I started playing piano at 4, moved the guitar at 9. And yeah, music was always around the house. My parents were big music fans, big like Allman Brothers, Grateful Dead fans.
So they schooled you on the right music?
Yeah. My dad was taking me to the Allman Brothers shows once
Wow.
I was 9, 10.
Amazing.
But yeah, so I started on guitar at 9. Within a year, I was like sitting in with blues bands and going to different jams in town.
So the old man was shuttling you around to go sit in with people?
Yeah. And then when I was 11, I sat in with Robert Randolph at the Michigan Theater in Ann Arbor. So he would like call guitar players out of the crowd.
Right.
My dad got everybody around us to point to me. So he called me up. I started playing, and he ended up keeping me on stage for like 20 minutes.
And you had no problem with playing it and fitting in?
Nope.
You were right in it?
And yeah. So then that led to getting my own gigs. Like it caught the attention of some people around town. So I had my own band in middle and high school.
What was your first band called?
The Jam Society.
Okay.
Yeah. Then, let's see, went to Michigan State, studied music, studied jazz there.
Right.
Had some really awesome professors. Rodney Whitaker, who was with Wynton Marsalis and Roy Hargrove for many years.
Wow.
Etienne Charles, Perry Hughes, one of the baddest guitar players. Randy Napoleon. And yeah, they really schooled me on, that Detroit bebop stuff. And I had professors that were out doing it, and
So they were active, creative, like Loyola professors,
yeah,
same thing.
They had played with everybody, so
Right.
they were teaching from experience, and it was performance based. It was about playing with other people as much as possible. But yeah, so Detroit obviously has really rich musical history. Motown, R&B. You have the blues scene.
MC5.
MC5. Yep. Iggy Pop. You have the funk thing going on. So once I was in college, I was in East Lansing, Michigan. So over here.
Mm-hmm.
I was driving over here to Detroit.
Constantly still gigging.
Yeah, gigging all through college.
Right.
And then especially my senior year, I started doing road dates with a blues singer named Thornetta Davis. And yeah, she's amazing.
And then what was the impetus to get to New Orleans?
I knew New Orleans was a city where I could play, all the time and play all the kinds of musics I love. So I definitely have musical ADD, and I need to play like everything to be
Right.
happy.
And so you moved here what year?
2016, so right after graduating.
And did you
college.
have friends here? Did you have people?
I barely knew anybody.
So you just showed up?
I just showed up.
Wow. And so you've been here 8 years, and you've already gotten 3 Grammy nominations, which we'll cover that
Well,
later.
Yeah, 4.
4. Oh, my
Yeah.
bad. Okay.
4.
I can't keep up with you. So anyway, so what was your first impactful, situation playing when you got here in 2016?
Let's see. Yeah, I would go down the Frenchman Street and, sit in with different bands, and then one thing would lead to another. So I remember I first moved down, I would sit in with Pat Casey at Spotted Cat, and then some of those guys started recommending me for gigs. Then Gene's Music Machine, he's kind of like a mainstay on Frenchman Street. I started playing with him. Then, yeah, maybe a year into being in New Orleans, I started playing with people like Eric Bloom, who was the trumpet player from Lettuce. He was living here. I started working in his band. Nigel Hall, Tony Hall from Dumpster Funk, who I've basically
awesome.
been playing with him ever since.
Right.
Terrence Higgins, another guy that comes to mind. I've worked with him quite a bit. Yeah.
So what I love about this story is, like, for all students out there or musicians anywhere, like, New Orleans is that place. It is a welcoming, nurturing place if you got talent, right? If you got game, you don't have to necessarily have started at 4 years old like some people. But the fact that you can just come here and sit in with people and build a network and build relationships is pretty special, which why we're both here, right? It makes for just an amazing musical environment, and you are kind of a young poster boy for it, if you will, right? You have to just have the will and desire. Were your parents down for you just going to a new town and showing up with nothing?
Yeah.
Because they were music people.
Yeah, they trusted me and supported me, and yeah, I was, pretty soon I was supporting myself.
Just
and
gigging.
Didn't really need their help anymore.
And then
So-
what year and how did Chawa get going? How did you get involved with that?
So that was maybe 3 months after I moved to New Orleans.
Okay.
I got a last minute call to sub with Chawa. So Aurelian, the trumpet player in the
Amazing.
Rumble, he had been doing gigs with Chawa, and the band leader called Aurelian, said, "Hey, I need a guitar player last minute for this run. It's in 2 days." We had to go to Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and he said, "Who do you know?" Aurelian said,
Ari Teitel picked up the phone.
Call Ari.
Right.
So he called me. He sent the music. It was like, "Yeah, we leave in 2 days. I'll be at your house at 6 a.m. to pick you up." It's like, cool. So, and I was getting my master's at UNO at the time. So then, and
What were you getting a master's in?
in jazz. So they had there was some jazz guitar ensemble concert. Basically called my professor, was like, "Hey, I'm not coming to class tomorrow. I'm going on the road, and I'm missing this concert." So
How'd that go
someone
over?
else, they were like, "All right, we'll figure it out."
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think they got Brian Seeger, the other guitar professor, to
fill
in my
Right.
spot with
So
the
that
guitar ensemble.
first on the road felt good.
Yeah, so he had sent me 15 songs, and I showed up prepared. I knew all the music, and then after that, they basically called me for all the gigs, and then that led to me being the musical director. Well, first, before that, we recorded the Spy Boy album. So Jose, or Joe Mays, the trombone player in the Rumble, he was a big part of that. So he came in the bands shortly after me, and we were, part of the writing process, the creative process for the Spy Boy album, produced by Ben Elman from Galactic. That one, not one, it got nominated for a Grammy. Then I became the musical director shortly after that, and then we kind of shook up the personnel a little bit. So that's when Andrew Yanofsky, Yano, came in on keys. Aurelian rejoined the band, so he had been out for a bit. he came back, and then they and myself kind of formed like the songwriting core of the band that would write most of the music for My People record. And
Which,
then,
by the way, that's still my favorite record.
My people, we've been left behind before. My people, devil's knocking on your door.
That feels like a modern day New Orleans anthem. You know what I mean?
yeah, well, that's
It's a spitball off Alan Toussaint's Night People, right? It's got that same kind of interesting vibes to it, but it's it's great flavor.
Yeah, no, that's Andrew and Aurelian who
Yeah.
wrote that. And then, of course, Chief Joseph Boudreaux Jr. kind of came back in the fold with Chawa. He first started like as more of a backup Indian, and then once Juwan Boudreaux left the band, Joseph kind of took more of a lead vocal role, and just was more vocal as a leader and a songwriter, and started bringing his creative energy to the project. TJ Norris came in the fold then. And then finally we did a tour. This was 2021 when Trent came on board and played drums on it. And then it's like, oh, yeah, we got something.
So then the energy felt like you wanted to go start your own thing at that point?
Yeah, we wanted to be owners of
Right.
of the band. We knew we had the talent and the creative, I guess, skills and energy to run our own band, and yeah, we wanted ownership, and we wanted it owned by predominantly local-born black musicians. That was important, that the culture bearers have ownership stake in the
Right.
band, which they did not have in Chawa. So that was kind of like the impetus to start the Rumble. Like, let's make music on our own terms, own the business, do things our way, and we call it taking it back, taking the culture back. So that's song "Take It Back"
It's a good one.
on the record. Yeah, that's kind of what that's about.
And the Rumble, what was the name? Where'd you come up with the name?
So the Rumble kind of comes from, when you have the Indian tribe out on Mardi Gras Day, you have the people in the back, you have the drums, and then everybody just making noise. That's the Rumble. That
Got it.
sound, that feeling you have in the street. So that we felt that kind of encapsulated who we are and what we are, and what we represent.
So Rumble starts, Maple Leaf, you do a live recording at the Maple Leaf. Vibe, energy, New Orleans shows like the Maple Leaf and Tipitinas, the Radiators, Neville Brothers, all these bands, Forerunners, Meters. You put these bands on a stage and the energy of it is amazing. So to record it, is an amazing idea. And obviously that record goes out and gets nominated for Grammy.
Yeah.
So not a bad way to start, right? When
No.
you first, you don't have a studio record out yet, but you're already Grammy nominated. Talk about that feeling of just going, kind of validation, if you will, because to me the Grammys are the ultimate musical validators in a certain way. Talk about the feeling of making it happen, putting it out, and getting a nomination.
Yeah, I mean, we worked our butts off to get the band started because we essentially had to start from scratch. We took the songs we had written for Chawa with us, and we wanted to present them the way we wanted to. So we put those on the live record, and then some of our new songs, and we kind of put our team together. Mac Major, big part of that. Evan Martin, who went to Loyola
guy, sound
yeah,
guy.
he's come on the road with us.
Oh, really?
And he was an assistant on that record, and we put the record out independently. We submitted it to the Grammys like at the deadline, at the buzzer. And then sure enough, a few months later, I got a text, was like, "Congrats, y'all." I was like, "What?"
Wow, it's amazing.
We couldn't believe it, and yeah, just all that hard work, and yeah, I mean, it was definitely a struggle leaving Chawa and starting the Rumble, so it just to
Yeah, I mean,
feel like
you walked away from a Grammy-nominated band
yeah,
and started another band, which is hard to do, period. But then the validation of getting another Grammy nomination, just as that one of those, got to be great feelings, right?
it was I started crying, yeah, and to know we didn't do it for nothing,
Right.
and that we really had something
Yeah.
special.
Well, I mean, for me, who's seen a lot of live bands and a lot of New Orleans music, and seeing that Rumble, at the Maple Leaf just takes me back to me being in the Maple Leaf in the early '80s and seeing the Nevilles and the Radiators and the Meters and Dr. John, and just this wealth of talent that is now just almost gone, but seminal. And so you guys are now, the whole thing about this culture is that you need to keep permeating it, right? You need to come up with it. You need people like yourself that understand it. And the marriage of obviously the Indian culture, being a primarily black culture, and white musicians playing with them has its own sensitivities to it, which you obviously seem to understand really well. And the ability to put it out forward in the world is something that's super important to be done right. And obviously you guys are doing that. So hats off to you for that. So for you, for this record, which also was released in the end of August at the buzzer again.
Yep.
And it's just gotten was that fourth Grammy nomination for this?
Fourth for me, so second for the Rumble.
Second
so
for the
I had
Rumble.
two with Chawa,
Two with
now
Chawa.
two
So,
with the Rumble.
I mean, your track record is pretty freaking good. So, what are you gonna do next time, right? No, I'm just kidding. So the songwriting, what I was talking to Aurelian the other night at the show, from My People and from Down in the City and a couple other records, Now You Know, like I was saying to him, the balance of creating these Mardi Gras Indian culture records, but also mainstream records, hard to do. And so how in the songwriting process are you guys working on that to make sure the funkiness and the culture is represented, but yet songs are what makes a band big, right? Great songs that translate across many different people and genres. How are you guys doing it when you create to try to balance those two?
Well, I think the culture is basically who most of the band, it's who we are. So that's going to come out inevitably, and we gravitate towards those rhythms and that music and that spirit. But at the same time, we're all fans of modern music, and we blend our other influences with the Mardi Gras Indian music, with the New Orleans funk stuff, and so we take our hip hop and R&B influences.
You mentioned the word rhythm, and I was watching Michael Murphy's movie recently, Up from the Streets, and Earl Palmer was talking about Earl Palmer, the legendary drummer who really was heavily responsible for the New Orleans second line beat, and Earl ended up playing on some of the biggest records of all time. Talk about rhythm and playing with drummers, bass players, and you fitting in New Orleans, right? Because Detroit, other places are different than here. I mean, music's music, right? But New Orleans does have a different level to it. Can you speak on it a little bit about fitting into the rhythm and that New Orleans thing, if you will?
Yeah, you have to get used to it. I mean,
Get used to what?
It's the syncopation. So in Detroit, a lot of the music might be or a funk thing might just be pretty straight. Where in New Orleans, you got
It's a different world.
It's different. So you have to I guess you just gotta live in it.
And when you first got here,
breathe it.
did you know that the differences?
Yeah, because I listened to
Right.
Meters Records, Dr. John Records, Alan Toussaint Records. Yeah, so I was
You were
I was
hip to it.
aware of it, but
Right.
it's different when you're actually in it
Right.
and playing with the people who are, you know, your Herlin Rileys, your Raymond Webbers, Terrence Higgins, who are, you know, masters of
Right.
that craft.
So for you, how old are you?
I'm 30.
Right. So you're a young person, right? And the amount of achievements you did in your 20s already to be in these two bands and get 4 Grammy nominations, it's not unheard of. It happens, but you're in that top echelon already. And you're now getting called to do things like, be a band leader for the Stevie Wonder.
Oh yeah, I was not a band leader, but I was tapped to be
Right.
in that.
Right. So
that
you're
band.
getting those calls. You've done some gigs with David Shaw from the Revivalists for his solo stuff, and now you're doing a bunch of gigs with one of the best all-time musicians for me in my mind, or two, him and Tony Hall, obviously, Dumpster Funk. So talk about that experience of playing with those two legends in Dumpster Funk.
Yeah, like I said, I've been playing with Tony for years, almost since I moved here. Shortly after, I started doing some gigs with him and Ivan here, Maple Leaf All Stars type gigs. Then a year and a half ago, Ivan put out his solo record, and he brought me on the road to promote that record. So we did a few tour dates, and then I started playing more, Ivan Neville gigs, and then once Nick Daniels, the great Nick Daniels III, may he
Terrible.
rest in peace. Yeah, once he was getting ill, they called me, and yeah, it's not something I take lightly.
No, I was watching Ivan the other night at Tipping Point. Ivan was our first OffBeat podcast, I believe. And I've known the guy for 40 years. And so we go back. I used to book him when I was at WTUL doing Rock On Survival Marathons. And I work with his family with the A&M Records with Yellow Moon. And so for me, I was watching Ivan the other night at Tipping Point play with a great band. I don't know if you went to that show, but Eric Krasnow and Tony. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy's probably like my favorite musician today, because he embodies the spirit of everything I love about this town and music. And what's it like playing with those guys, because they are masters at their craft, and you as a younger guy still coming and still learning, what's that process like for you?
Yeah, they're masters of their craft, not only of New Orleans New Orleans music, but they're awesome rock players. They're awesome R&B players. They can play everything from the Isley Brothers and the Gap Band to Led Zeppelin. I mean, Tony played with Emmylou Harris and Jewel.
Right.
Their breadth
Right.
is insane. Ivan sang with Rufus.
Right.
Played with Keith Richards. So they're bringing all that legendary experience to the stage, and they truly live and breathe the music, and they absolutely love what they do. I think more than anybody I know, and that's something.
Yeah, it is a pleasure to watch and be part of. And I signed Ivan to a publishing deal selfishly so I could just work with him and help as much as I could in getting because he hadn't made a solo record in 20 plus years, I think. So yeah, those guys is great. Then you guys, and that helps your growth, right? Because you get around these people like that and see how they roll, and it's got to just keep nurturing your movement.
Well, yeah, and it's not just them. It's Ian Neville, who's a master of rhythm guitar.
Right.
I mean, he's one of the funkiest guitar players alive. So you got him, and then you got Devin Trusclair, who's one of the best up and coming drummers, period, not just.
Yeah. So your breath is
Louisiana.
you built this great thing, and you also personally, you met a great woman. You got married recently. Talk about that experience and how that helps ground you and fill your life out in a way.
Yeah, I mean, we live uptown with our 2 dogs, and just having that stability and, you know, someone who you can trust, someone who trusts you and is there to support you, you know, having that support system is, you know, truly invaluable, especially when you're dealing with the ups and downs of a music career. So, yeah, and she's a shrink.
Oh, you can always talk it through, baby. Yeah, talking it through.
It's funny. 3 of us in the Rumble are married to therapists.
Is that true? And
yeah.
didn't 3 of you recently get married too?
Yeah, all within 3 months.
It's the same 3 therapists?
Yes. Andrew, Aurelian, and I.
Wow, that is crazy.
Yeah, so Stevie, my wife, I can't say enough great things
Shout
about
out
her.
Stevie.
Shout out.
All right, so
Yeah.
this record, right? So let's talk about this record. So this record is dope.
Stories from the battlefield. To survive, you need a heart of steel.
And just going overall, we talked about Aurelian. So Aurelian, trumpeter, percussion. Father is Sunpai Barnes.
Yep.
And so he grew up, obviously, with incredible musicality and diversity in his music taste, right? He's also, his father is Skull and Bones Gang, right?
Yeah. Big Chief of the North
Big
Side,
Chief of the North
Skull and
Side.
Bones.
And so they mask every morning, every Tuesday, Mardi Gras morning, and get out there early,
Yep.
which is something I always wanted to get out there and do and never have been able to follow him. But Aurelian kind of grew up in that. Talk about playing with him and what that relationship is like with you and him, because I see you guys rolling around town together, hanging. Also, you're not just playing together, you're hanging.
Yeah. He's one of my best friends, and I had a friend from Detroit named Aaron Cohen who was roommates with Aurelian at Tulane. So I think like my first week down
So
here.
he was an early guy for you.
Yeah, I started playing with Aaron, and Aurelian was playing trumpet with him, and yeah, Aurelian, you know, he was playing in the New Breed brass band and the Kings of Brass, so he brings that, and then obviously with Sunpai being his father, he's exposed to all sorts of world music, Brazilian music, African music, Zydeco, blues, and he brings all that to the table, and also he's just a super intelligent, smart guy who knows just a lot about New Orleans history.
Music in general. I saw him at the Jungle
yeah.
Show at the Sanger, and he's like, I go, what are you doing? He's like, my wife, she loves this band. I had to come. I love them too. So like that's a totally different left field,
Yeah.
English funk, if you will, whatever
Yeah,
you call it.
I was there too.
Yeah, it's a great show.
Yeah.
That's a great band.
Yep.
And obviously Joseph Mays, you talked about, you played with him for a while. What's his background?
So he's a trombone player with the TBC brass band, and then his father was a singer and had an a cappella group, Sensational Uptowners, and grew up in the 13th Ward, you know, around people like Ivan, Daryl Johnson, who played bass with the
Sahib,
Neville Brothers. So
killer.
they're kind of like running partners.
Right.
Yeah, so Jose, you know, brings that big brass band energy, just insane trombone player, but also he's just a lover of all sorts of music from hip hop, soul, R&B, and he raps too, and he's been involved a lot in the songwriting process, and yeah.
Great. And TJ, I'm sorry, yeah, we got TJ Norris, Andrew Yanofsky, again, another friend of yours you spent a lot of time with besides playing with. Talk about Yano and what he brings to the table.
Yano, I mean, excellent keyboard player, someone who's really studied every genre, and he brings that to the table. And also, he's already an accomplished songwriter, so he's kind of brought this, I guess, next level songwriting chops to the band that I think it's infectious. It makes everybody want to work harder on crafting their songs, because he does it so well. And yeah, he's also he provides a lot of the dad jokes. Yeah, he's just a hilarious guy. Has a heart of gold, and yeah, that's my brother.
And Trenton O'Neill.
Trent, you know, he's the ladies' man. Every band needs one. But no, Trent. He went to Loyola here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Was an awesome drummer. Plays, you know, he's played everything from singer-songwriter stuff with Maggie Kerner, to who else? Deltaphonic, Keanu Linnell. You know, has worked in the jazz sphere a lot. So he brings kind of you know rhythms from every style, and of course, being a New Orleans-born drummer, he's got that second line thing. On top of that, he's an amazing vocalist and songwriter. So, on the music that we're putting forward to the next, you know, TBA record, I'll say Trent is contributing quite a bit of songwriting, and I think
So you already,
look out for that.
You guys are already working on the next one.
We have a lot of songs
Amazing.
ready to go, and yeah, so Trent's really become an integral part of the songwriting.
Yeah, it really is a great sum of parts. And when you see it live, I brought a couple people last week to see him, and they'd never seen or heard of you before, and they were kind of mesmerized. And it's like, it's always, you know, when you feel something's good and you're like, I love this, but then you bring other people to the equation to see if they like it, and they might not be as deep musically as me, but the fact that people just get it, and it's infectious. Like, you can't get it, you can't not get it. And especially in those small venues, you know, the Maple Leafs of the world, the energy's so good. Talk about what you've been doing tour-wise, and how have you been able to spread that music out there on maybe bigger stages or other stages where people don't know you as well. How's that been so far?
You know, kind of like you said, people I think they see it first. They see the suit, and then they feel it. They feel the rhythms, and yeah, it makes everybody want to dance. And yeah, a lot of times we'll play in a totally new city, and we'll get asked to do double encores, triple encores.
You don't want to go home.
People
They're
don't.
funking it up.
People
They don't want to
wanna-
leave.
Sometimes it's even like you'll end up with like 10 people in the crowd, and they will not go home. they can't
They
get
can't
enough.
walk away.
So, yeah, we've been, especially at music festivals, they love us. We did the Portland Waterfront Blues Festival, Jazz Aspen. We've done Telluride Blues and Brews.
Wow, those are big gigs.
Yeah, and it's
What festivals do you have lined up for next year? Anything?
let's see. So we're doing the Olympia Funk Fest again, Grammy weekend. So they asked us back-to-back years, and I think that's one of the ways we know we have something special, is that promoters are asking us back a second year in a row, and it's kind of rare for bands to play the same festival 2 years in a row.
Yeah, hopefully you can get out to the High Sierra Music Festival at some point, because that's an amazing festival.
We did that with Chawa actually.
Right.
So
It's a good
we're
one.
hoping to do that. Yeah, we have a lot of festivals that are unannounced yet.
Right. And who does your booking?
We have Royal Artist Group.
Okay.
So Eric Gerber and Eric Puente are booking us, and now Eric Gerber is working with us on the management side of things too.
Okay. So, yeah, so those, I mean, obviously having a good team, we always talk about it at school, how important it is to have a good team. Social media, who does that? Who keeps up on that for you guys?
Aurelian does a lot of that.
He does a lot.
But, you know, we'll bring in some different videographers and stuff to help us make content. Our good friend Mark Gunson, who's done a lot of work, and we're actually working on a documentary with him.
What type of stuff is that going to be?
We're going to talk about our band's history, and also some Mardi Gras Indian history, and tie it all together.
Okay. Great.
Yep.
And then, obviously, we talked about Mac Major and engineer and Chris Finney, two of the best in town. Talk about working with those guys.
Yeah, so Finney, the first record I ever worked on here with Aaron Cohen, and Aurelian was a part of that. Was with Finney at Studio in the Country. We've been friends ever since, and we've worked on various projects throughout the years. And then Mac, I guess we kind of, I guess, came up around the same time in New Orleans. Like, while I was kind of getting my feet wet here, he was an assistant at the Parlor and started working on big records, like PJ Morton's big records that went on to get Grammys and stuff. And then Mac.
And you got to play on PJ Morton's records, didn't you?
Yep, so I played on the record Paul.
Sometimes I wish I didn't know all I know. I used to believe in the impossible.
And then I recently played on a Donald Lawrence record, got tribute to Twinkie Clark, that he had PJ as a featured artist on it. And PJ brought me in to play guitar on that. And found out that got nominated for like 5 Stellar Awards, which is like the big gospel.
The biggest gospel, yeah.
Yeah, so that was cool. And then PJ's brought me in for other like commercial music.
He's killing it right now.
Projects. Yeah, he's amazing. And then TJ, our bass player, plays trombone in PJ's band, and also plays trombone in Maroon 5.
Yeah, it's amazing. Oh, TJ plays in Maroon 5 too?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
This TJ right here. Yeah, I mean, it's really a true testament to everybody being able to make time for, what's your number one, right? What's your priority? What's your priority gig, right? So obviously the Rumbles, as it builds, it becomes the priority gig for everybody,
Yep,
But it's hard to do because everybody's can make money elsewhere and do great things, but it's to put a band together and keep a band together. And how would you say, like, when you get sessions together, who's in charge of trying to get the band together? Who's that person
For
you guys?
For Rumbles?
When you're organizing the Rumble to do stuff, who's putting together rehearsals together and?
Various people kind of take. Sometimes it might be me. Sometimes Aurelian might be the point person.
So you guys
Today
are really
was
democracy.
TJ sending a text to the band, hey, we need to start scheduling rehearsals.
Right.
So
it's good. So everybody's in.
yeah,
That's what it's all about. And also for you, you've been playing a little bit with David Shaw. How were those gigs? I saw you in Austin, Texas.
Yep.
Right? Was that South by? You played at South by?
Yep.
Yeah, I saw
so
you
I
play
did
with
his
Showcase.
all his South by Southwest shows.
Right.
That was awesome. I mean, obviously he's one of the great performers of today.
He really is.
And songwriters, and it was awesome playing more in a rock setting.
And you like it all, right? I mean,
I love it all, yeah, and I was able to cut loose, and it definitely. I had to play some slide guitar on that gig,
Nice.
which I don't always do, so that was definitely fun. And I asked David. I said, "Hey, is it cool if I don't play the slide solo that's on your record?" And because I'm not the greatest slide player, and he was like, "Nah, you're playing slide." I was like, "All right, I guess I'm playing."
Figure it
slide.
out, bro. Figure it out.
And then and on the gig at first I was like, "Man, I suck. Like I can't do it." And they're
Right.
like, "Nah, you're keep playing slide.
Just do it."
It's like, God damn. So yeah, that and Dave's also just the nicest guy.
Yeah, he seems amazing.
Yeah, that
That's
was a really fun experience.
Well, and by the way, who did the graphics for this record? Because it's really beautiful. Who designed all this?
That was Rob Winchester, and Rob has done almost all our logo work since the band started.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of got in on the ground floor. Mm-hmm. And he also designed the live album LP artwork. So not the artwork you see on Spotify, but if you get the live LP, he did a hand drawn thing. So this is like collage style.
Yeah,
but,
it's got the Mississippi River rolling through with the different plots of land, the New Orleans wards on the sides and going right through his face. It's super cool.
But yeah, his hand drawn art and painting is amazing, and he's just a really creative guy.
I should pick up this record, Rumble, available on vinyl, on Spotify, and all the DSPs. Grammy-nominated people. Ari Teitel, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
To Loyola and
you.
visiting with us. He'll be performing at Forum next year at some point for Loyola, and he'll be everywhere because he's crushing it. I'll see you all next time. Bye.